Hello again. Welcome to In This Family, where I have in-depth conversations with fascinating people about mental health, family, the past, and the future. I'm Dr. Michelle K. Murray, President and CEO of Nexus Family Healing, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and your host. In This Family is presented by Nexus Family Healing, a national nonprofit mental health organization who helps youth and families heal from trauma and complex mental health challenges. We believe every child is worth it and every family matters. Our mental health is not just a matter of our brain chemistry. It's a product of the environment a person is raised in. The culture of that environment, shaped by history and tradition, can have a big effect on someone's well-being, sometimes through generations. Vivien Lee lives in Minnesota. She recently earned her master's degree in marriage and family therapy and works as a counselor. Vivien is part of her region's large Hmong population. The Hmong people are native to southwestern China as well as Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Myanmar. After the Vietnam War, tens of thousands of Hmong refugees fled to the United States, and St. Paul, Minnesota has become home to America's largest Hmong population. The Hmong people started families and careers and businesses. For their children born in the U.S., this has meant being American while also being a part of another culture. And it's meant having to unlock what part of a mental health issue is unique to one's own family, what's a result of the dissonance between Hmong and traditional American culture, and what can be linked to generational trauma. For Vivien, mental health issues began at 8 years old. A quick note that I want to mention is that this episode contains discussions of rape, sexual assault, and suicidal ideation.
When I was 8, I started kind of just questioning the purpose of why I was here, why I was on this earth, why I came to be part of this family, and really I was confused. So I was kind of questioning, why am I here? Why this family? Why am I different from everyone else? Because around that age, I had a lot of Caucasian friends. In elementary school, I was one of 2 Asian students, so I was just struggling with really who I was.
And what was kind of your understanding now as you look back, why you were questioning that?
I really want to say it was the struggle of being an Hmong American girl, seeing my friends go out riding their bikes, seeing them go out to the malls together, going to the movies, kind of just doing things that really friends do. And I wasn't able to really do that. So I had to question kind of like, why am I sheltered? Why am I home? Why can't I go out with my friends? Why can't I go to the school dances or anything, or even go watch football games or anything like that? So that was kind of why I was questioning myself. I saw myself different from everybody else.
And maybe give us some context about that. Talk about your family being Hmong and being here in the United States and what was going on for your family then.
Well, at that time, I am the oldest and only girl. I have 4 younger brothers, so I had a lot of responsibilities taking care of my brothers, coming home and making sure that they had something to eat after school. My mom always worked 2 jobs, and so I was kind of like the second parent to them at an early age. And so my mom and my dad were struggling financially. I remember at one point, it was like Christmas time and we had Secret Santa packages, and I didn't realize that it was because we're like lower link income family that we were getting these packages from the community and stuff. So they were trying to find their way in America as well too. And me just being the oldest and only girl, there were expectations for me of being home, taking care of the kids, making sure that dishes were done, making sure they took their showers, making sure they did their homework. And so I was really kind of struggling with like really my identity at that time and like, where do I belong when I'm at school? I'm with all these kids who have freedom, who can go and do things. When I'm at home, I'm kind of sheltered. And so that's kind of where around the age of 8 was kind of when I started having those responsibilities and kind of trying to figure out like, why can't I be like them?
Yeah. And was that part of your culture of not being able to do those things with the other kids, or was it more about the financial situation at home or the responsibilities?
I would say it's more of a culture thing. It really is. The Hmong culture, when it comes to the girls, there are high expectations for them to be very family oriented, to take after the siblings, younger siblings, to make dinner, to have the house chores done, really kind of doing what the mom would do in a sense. But I would say with my mom working two jobs, it kind of fell on me. So as a daughter in the Hmong culture, it's very typical for you to be that backup person to hold the house down together.
And were you talking to your parents about these feelings and thoughts you were having?
Not at all. No, gosh. I wasn't very open with my parents at all in regards to feelings because it, the relationship we had didn't feel like I could do that with them. If anything, it would be considered talking back to them. So it was just kind of like you'll get punishment. You'll get disciplined if you talk back to them.
So what did you do with it? What did you do about it?
Nothing. I bottled it up. I bottled everything up and kind of isolated myself from the family, from my friends and everything. I really loved my room. It was the ugliest room ever, honestly, because it had like 1950s wallpaper, but it was kind of the only place that I really felt safe.
And I think you have identified as struggling with some mental health issues.
Yes, I do. For the longest time, yeah.
And talk about when you started to notice that.
I didn't really notice it until I want to say I was 9 or 10 when I started kind of like really, really struggling with it and realizing that, hey, I'm not as happy as I really should be. I had a lot of friends who were always coming to me and talking to me, and they seemed like they had lived a really happy life. And I
Hmm.
did a lot of comparing of my family to their family, their parents loving them, supporting them, and putting them in sports and stuff too, like that. So it was a different kind of support. So it wasn't until I was like about 10 years old when I realized that there might be something wrong with me.
And what were those thoughts and feelings you were having?
Gosh, everything from loneliness to frustration, depression. At times I would get anxiety too because I would think that I could talk to my mom because I'm the only girl and mothers and daughters are supposed to have that type of relationship. So I would get anxious around her too because I wanted to talk to her, but knew that she might not reciprocate the feelings that I wanted her to. Honestly, I started having like suicidal thoughts too around the age of 10 because of it.
Wow, that's really young. And how did you get through that?
I don't really know. I want to say my fifth grade teacher, she was like a huge mentor to me, and she kind of was the barrier between me and my parents, and spoke on my behalf about some of my feelings and my struggles and stuff to my parents because my parents trusted her. I had her in second, fourth, and fifth grade, so she was almost like a second mother to me, and she kind of encouraged me to talk to the school counselor and kind of just talk to somebody about it, even if it wasn't with her specifically. And so I want to say that, that fifth grade teacher was the one who kind of opened the doorway to talking to other people's about feelings in general.
Did your parents know that you were feeling suicidal?
No. And to this day, they still don't know that I struggled with that.
Vivian, how were you taught that it wasn't okay to talk about mental health?
Just being in the Hmong community, we don't talk about grief. We don't talk about sadness. We don't talk about feelings. The relationship between like a father and daughter is very strict. I knew, even though I wasn't taught not to sit in the same room with him when he watched TV, I knew I had to get up and leave the room because he was a male figure. And so that was kind of, I was just brought up around that. And it kind of just came second nature. And also visiting other family members, talking to my cousins and kind of seeing how they interact. I guess in the sense, I kind of just adopted it from them, but it was just because nobody else did. My brothers didn't, if I remember correctly, they never talked about feelings and stuff. So it just didn't seem like it was a thing that families did.
What are you doing differently with your kids?
I'm so open with them. I really am. I am so very supportive of them. And a lot of people kind of mistaken us as brothers and sisters because I talk to them so calmly and in such a more natural, neutral way than parents really
Yeah.
do. And so a lot of people are always like, "Oh, you must be the older sister." I'm like, "No, I'm the mom." But it's just that type of relationship that I have with them. I've told my own children, I was like, if you're struggling with something, I don't care if it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Come knock on my door if you want that hug. Come knock on the door and tell me you're struggling. And they saw how I kind of grew up. They saw how my parents and I were when they were young. And so it took them a while to open up to me as a parent too. But when I was telling them, please, I need this. Like, I need to know that you're okay. I open the opportunity for you to tell me anything at any time. And so my relationship with them is so different from my relationship with my parents. And a lot of it was just because I knew how it felt to have all those feelings bottled up in a really, really tight jar.
Yeah, and you brought up the culture and what a powerful role that plays. How are you bringing in that cultural piece and that education with your own children?
I introduce them to, the foods that we have. I bring them around funerals and everything because it's such a huge part of our culture, funerals, weddings, because there's different rituals and ceremonies that are required by it. So I expose them a little at a time. I don't just throw them into it, which I feel like my parents kind of did to me and never gave me background on it. But my children are super curious because we don't live in an area where there's a lot of Hmong people. So when they hear people talking Hmong, hey mom, what are they saying? Hey, what you and dad are having such an intense conversation. What's it about? And everything like that. So I keep them curious by introducing them a little bit at a time. And also, like I said, involving them in family functions,
It's great.
going out to the community, the New Year's, any Hmong events that we can go to, I take them to them so that I can get exposure.
Talk a little bit about the hardest time of your life growing up. What was going on?
The hardest time growing up, there's two incidences actually. The first incident was when I was about in fourth and fifth grade. My grandparents, which were my dad's parents, were watching us. We're like, they came to live with us. They were grandparents and taking care of us and stuff like that. And eventually, my grandpa took advantage of the fact that I was young and immature and naive and tried to sexual assault me a couple times. Um, and I never told my parents about it. Um, even to this day, it's kind of hard to talk about, even with them, even though they now know what happened and everything. But it was a tough time. It really was a tough time. I didn't know who to trust because in the Hmong culture, you're supposed to be able to trust your elders. They talk
Yeah.
about the elders all the time. You respect the elders, you trust the elders. And this was an elder that I was supposed to trust. So that was one of the most difficult times growing up. And then as a teenager, at the age of 14, I was raped by a boyfriend. And once again, didn't know who to trust, didn't know who to tell, couldn't even tell my parents or anything like that. And I can tell you that to this day, they still don't know that I was raped at 14.
Well, that's a lot to go through. I'm sorry that those things have happened with you, and thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that with us. So you never told your parents about either, your parents still don't know about the boyfriend incident, but you never told your parents about your grandfather at the time?
At that time, it did not. I actually did not tell him about the situation with my grandpa until after he passed away and until I was already married and in my mid-20s because I felt like my husband could protect me. And because I was married now, if they wanted to discuss any kind of situations, they would have to actually ask my husband if it was okay first.
Okay.
And just, because it was all about respect, I'm part of this clan. They need to respect him and respect the fact that they would have to ask him to permission to talk. But yeah, I told him well after my grandpa passed away, and it was hard. It was hard to tell my dad. And I didn't even tell him. Like he heard through the grapevine that I had said something. So it's not like I had that sit down conversation, Dad, this is what happened. He more or less kind of sat me down and asked
Because
me,
this was his father.
yes. Yep.
Okay. And so he heard. So say more about that. He sat you down, and then what? What happened?
He sat me down and he kind of just looked at me and he goes, why didn't you tell me? And I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh gosh, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, why didn't you tell me that my dad did that to you? And I turned and I said, I tried to at that age. I remember specifically trying to tell you that this was happening, but you dismissed it as if I wanted attention. I was a troublemaker. And in their eyes, I was a troublemaker since I was young. Um, and so I was like, I did try to tell you. And I remember my mom's coming down and sitting next to us in the kitchen, and she was like, if I really think about it, I believe that you did try to tell us a couple times, but we just didn't hear it. And we didn't, I don't know if they didn't want to believe it, but it was just, like, oh, she's just looking for attention. And so they dismissed it. My grandpa passed away in my dad's house. So to have that conversation in his house and
Yeah.
realizing that his dad did this while he was living with us and passed away in his home, like he was just like, I wouldn't have allowed him to pass away in our house. And I was like, but he's your dad. How could you say no to him? Like, I would not be able to see him say no. No, dad, you can't pass away in my house because you sexually assaulted my daughter.
So you were talking about this being some of the hardest times that you were going through. And I imagine this small child going through all of this. What were you doing with all these thoughts and these feelings and all these things were happening to you? I mean, you sounded very alone in all of this.
I really was. I didn't even tell my best friend, who we've been best friends since kindergarten, like I didn't even tell her. But I didn't, you're right. I was alone and I just kept it to myself. I didn't know what to do because in the Hmong culture, they always say baluke, which is like cover your egg. And it's like covering your family, protecting your family. So if I was to say anything outside of the family, it would cause problems. And even saying something within the family, it rippled through the family and there were questions. And I know my uncle wanted to question me about it, but my husband was like, no, if you want to question her, you got to ask me. And they never did. They never went through him to try to get to the bottom of it. So I kept it to myself a lot.
Your brothers, you mentioned you had brothers.
Yes.
How's your relationship with your brothers?
My relationship with them, it's still a struggle. We're working on it. And I think a lot of it is the fact that they had my dad as a role model, as a mentor, and saw how he was really heavy on gender roles. I want to say that sometimes they're the same way because of my dad, not very open-minded to things to change or anything like that. And so when it comes to my brothers, like they still see me as a 13-year-old teenager who's lost and confused and the rebel. And so it's been tough. It really has. Even as a person who is married with 4 children of their own, there's still times when they try to argue above me or they try to prove their point without really hearing what I have to say. But I don't fault them for that, because like I said, it really came from my dad.
You mentioned depression before. Where are you at with that now, with depression?
I still have depression. Um, and I'm still working through my depression. You'd never be able to tell if you ever were to meet me in real life, like, oh, like you're so
Yeah.
happy-go-lucky, you're extroverted, you're the party of, the life of the party. But I still struggle with depression. I second guess myself a lot, and that kind of leads me to spiraling, be like, am I good enough? Am I doing the right thing? Are my kids going to be okay in the future? Can I provide for them? Am I a good mom? And so I do have moments where I question myself, and then all of a sudden I'm stuck in that funk where I'm at the lowest. I don't want to do anything. But I started seeing a therapist for myself because
No,
I
that's
feel like
great.
this is a time for healing.
And does your family ever experience you depressed?
No, I try
Wow.
not to be in front of my own family, in front of my kids, because I know
So,
how it can get them.
yeah. And how is that? How does it get them?
I don't want them to be like, I don't want them to feel my emotions, I don't want them to see me sulk and feel like, oh no, like mom can't help herself. Like, how are we going to help ourselves and everything like that? I don't want them to feel like that. And if anything, my children actually bring me a lot of happiness. Like they remind me to be present.
Yeah.
Um, and to be involved with them. Like, don't try not to be stuck in the corner by yourself. And like, you've got 4 kids who are really looking up to you. And so this is the time for them to really see you as a supportive person. And if you're struggling, let them know you're struggling so that they can understand, but they won't be afraid of it.
I want to go back to ask you some more just about your parents for a minute. When you were struggling with looking at the purpose of your life and struggling with different feelings, how did they make sense of it? Did they notice? What did they notice?
I'm not really sure my parents really noticed at all because feelings is something that we don't talk about enough in the Hmong culture. We always chalk it up to a broken soul, or they're doing drugs, or they're doing alcohol or something. Like we mask it, and we do such a good job at it. So I don't think my parents really recognized. And if they did, I never saw it. I never really did see it. Um, my mom allowed me to see a psychiatrist at one point in life, but it was only one visit because she pulled me out afterwards because she didn't know what we were talking about, and she didn't like that I was talking about things without her knowing or being having access to it. And
Yeah.
so if that shows you anything, like that tells you anything, it's like, okay, we just won't talk about it then.
And how did you end up going to a psychiatrist to begin with?
Senior year in high school, my family and I actually got into a really bad car accident. I was tossed out of the vehicle,
Oh,
thrown
wow.
about 20, 30 feet. And so they kind of had me do an evaluation physically, and they wanted to make sure that I was psychologically okay because I fell asleep. I opened my eyes and looked at the lady my dad was passing, and I saw her expression. And
No.
I went back to sleep. And so they figured when I told them that, they were like, all right, let's go have you see a psychiatrist. And that was when I was able to see a psychiatrist, was because of that car accident.
Do you remember what you talked to the psychiatrist about?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of feelings for sure. Also, like about the Hmong culture as well. And she did kind of touch base on like any trauma in the past. So I did bring up the sexual assault. I had been raped already at that time, and kind of just telling her about those things. And the relationship with my mom too. I remember specifically talking to her about how I couldn't go to my mom about things. I couldn't talk to her about things because I was afraid of retaliation and, oh, you're just brushing me off, honestly.
Yeah.
So those were a couple things that I remember us talking about. I never went back. My mom didn't allow me to go back.
And how did you feel about that, that she wouldn't let you go back?
I was mad. I was so mad. I finally felt like I could talk to somebody about
Yeah.
something. Like I didn't, and throughout high school, I never talked to my friends about feelings either. Um, Not even like my closest friends or anything like that, because it just didn't feel right because I never talked about it to anybody
Yeah.
else. So when I got to see that psychiatrist, it was a great feeling to get so much off. And then when my mom all of a sudden just cut it off, I resented her so much, and I was so mad. I remember just being so upset at her.
Have you ever talked to her about that?
No, she might not even remember it, honestly.
Vivian, were you ever diagnosed with major depressive disorder or any other mental health concern?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, but I remember the psychiatrist mostly focusing on the depression part of it because of the trauma.
And this was related to your car accident?
Yeah, that was the one time that I was actually diagnosed with some mental health disorder.
And did your parents know?
No. My mom worked at the same hospital and she thought she could get my records, but she couldn't because I was already 17 at that time. And I think that played a huge role in her pulling me out of seeing a psychiatrist or a counselor.
And how did that feel when you got this diagnosis for you?
I could put together finally a reason to why I would sit in my room all day or isolate myself from friends because like I said, I we weren't exposed to that kind of stuff and knowledge back then. Like I couldn't ask my mom. We didn't have Google back then either. So we couldn't ask Google about our symptoms and our illnesses or how we felt. But that was, I want to say that was another aha moment where it's like, that makes sense.
So, after you grew up and became an adult, what did you do with your depression? How did it change?
At the beginning, we kind of, like of of the the feelings of freedom. When I went to college, I finally left the house and went to UW-Madison. That was the feeling that I had of freedom. Like I finally felt free from the grasp of my parents, from the expectations of being a Hmong girl, a Hmong daughter, and everything like that. And so depression wasn't I didn't feel like I was depressed like the first couple of years of college or anything like that, especially with having my boyfriend being so supportive in many different aspects. It reminded me that parents will always be parents. You'll always struggle and everything. You're just among girls, so it's okay. Um, and so it was kind of like I said, keeping busy and surrounding myself with people who knew who I was. I didn't have to act differently in front of them or anything like that or around them, and really just making myself like let go as much as of if I could of the past and what caused that depression, which was my parents and the way I was brought up.
What are some of the things of the signs that you experience coming up for you that kind of trigger you to say, oh, the depression's coming up for me?
I love to keep myself busy, and I wish I could say it was because I like to be busy, but it really is. It distracts me. It distracts me from how I'm feeling that day. It distracts me from the memories of my miscarriage from 18 years ago and not having my in-laws there to support us. So keeping myself busy has been a horrible way of me keeping afloat, but it's what makes me get through the day. And when I have time to myself and I'm not doing anything, I sit there and I think a lot. I think about my past, I think about my traumas, I think about all the experiences that I have personally gone through. And it gets deeper and it hurts more and it hurts more because I'm not able to talk about it. Or when I do want to talk about it, I'm shut down real quickly. So it really is when I'm by myself. And that's the most dangerous time is when you're by yourself.
And when you find yourself alone, is there a technique that you use to avoid a path of getting further and further into the depression that might be good advice for other people that experience the same thing?
Yeah, I've been able to kind of reflect on this because I find myself doing it more, and it really is just stopping myself and reminding myself that, hey, I need to live for today and for the future. And what has happened to me in the past has happened, and I've been able to be okay with it. I certainly don't accept what has happened to me, but it's just really stopping myself and being like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, why do you keep picking at this scab? Why do you keep reliving this toxic chapter of your life? How about moving forward? How about you remembering all the things that you've done for yourself, how you've raised your children, how went and got your master's degree, and and ask myself, like, are you proud of yourself? And if I can answer yes, then it's like, it's gratification, you know? And so it's just really a reminder and just verbally saying stop. I've sat there and my son has heard me say stop and he'll be like, stop what? I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm deep in my thoughts. I'm telling myself to stop because if I don't, you're gonna be bringing me that box of Kleenex and you're gonna be wondering what's going on with mom. And then it's 15, 20 years of trauma that I have to sit here with. And I don't want to do that.
Well, thank you for sharing the techniques that help you, because I'm sure that that will help others too. And
I hope so.
I think it's pretty powerful too that when you're saying stop out loud and your son recognizes it, that you're talking out loud with him about what you're doing. I
Hmm.
mean, what effect do you think that has on him?
I think it allows him to be more open too, because when we get stuck in our thoughts, we can have arguments. No, you don't feel like this. Yes, you feel like this. No, you should do this. No, you should do that. But when you actually speak it out, it's the only thing that you hear. And so your mind's not telling you no, don't tell yourself to stop because you're expecting another person to be like, no, no, mom, you need to stop. And so I really hope that it's teaching him to be open and that it's okay to have those conversations because you do need to remind yourself to stop in the moment, before you act, before you think, before you react to anything.
And is that different than how you grew up?
Oh my gosh. Yes, very different. Um, It's very, very different. I wouldn't even be able to sit there and talk to myself because my mom would probably be like, well, are you crazy? What's going on with you? Are you on drugs? Like what's going on? And then, obviously it feeds into your self-esteem and everything. So it is completely different from when I was raised.
So you really are breaking a generational cycle.
I really hope I am. And as you say that, it gives me goosebumps because as I'm doing it at home, I don't realize it. And then when I share it, people are like, "No, you really are." And so now I'm sure after this conversation, I'll be like, "I really am. I really am." And I can go home and see my children and see how I am breaking it.
Vivian, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the traumas you think your parents have gone through in their life?
Yeah, I mean, being refugees of the Vietnam War, I can definitely see where some of that might have been traumatizing. I hear the stories, like my dad does tell stories of losing siblings. Like he had nine brothers, but now he only has six or something. And so he remembers specifically losing his brothers and his siblings during that war. And so yeah, I'm pretty sure that they do have their own traumas from it. I've never really heard my mom talk about her traumas or anything, but definitely my dad.
How do you think that's impacted his parenting?
That might explain some of his overprotection, honestly.
Hmm.
Um, because he couldn't protect his brothers and his sister that he lost. Whether it be, I think he lost his sister because of an illness or something. But regardless, I can see why he'd be so overprotective. Also coming to a new country as well,
Yeah,
and being fearful of not meeting the expectation of this country as well, and pushing
yeah.
us to be better, to do better, to listen to the American people, do what they say, don't do what they don't say, and stuff like that. So I can see that coming from my dad, definitely.
I know that from reading some of your work that you're a big advocate in your Hmong community.
Yes.
And I was wondering, what mental health needs do you see among people in your community?
That's a really good question. I think lately I've been noticing that a lot of the men in our Hmong community are not able to voice their needs or express themselves like they should. And I feel like that's exactly where the problems stem from when it comes to the problems inside the home, is because they feel trapped. Generations after generations, they've been taught you can't show your emotions, you can't talk about your problems, you can't even talk to your friends about what's going on in your family or the problems that you have. And so that makes them feel like they're caged up, and they're kind of trapped. So I really feel like the Hmong mental health in the men in the community is one of the biggest problems right now.
And do you think that the community recognizes that as a
Not at
whole?
all. Not at all. I don't think as a whole, even just mental health, I don't think they recognize it at all. There's such a huge persona and there's such a huge concept in the fact that the man is the household. He should be strong. And that's what they grew up knowing since they were little on. And so I feel like no, we they don't recognize that at all.
In your community, and this could also even be your family, but in the Hmong community, do you see certain types of trauma patterns that would be applicable to what your community experiences?
I go back to how this year is the 50th anniversary of the Hmong coming to America. And I want to say that the trauma of having to flee their country
Yes.
overnight and fearing for your lives and not knowing what your future is, we haven't talked about that enough for them to actually show what they feel and expose that. And I feel like that trauma has really been passed down to all of us. Like even to me, even though I was born in America, born in Chicago, Illinois, like I still have some, I feel that trauma from my parents, but how do I get them to talk about it? And then I pass it on to my kids because they need to know our history, but are we really solving anything by really just passing it down and not talking about it? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, and what happens if people try to talk about this?
It gets kind of shoved under the table. Oh, that was the past. Oh, I just dealt with it. Oh, there were so many things going on, and I feel like we just put excuses and we mask it. I've actually talked to my dad about his experience of losing siblings because of the war and coming here and not knowing English and having to learn everything all over again. And he'll just answer the very simple answers, and then he'll change the subject. And I can see the pain in his face. I can see that the fear still in his eyes when he talk about it. But it's that fear, and that's why he changes the subject. It's because he doesn't want to relive it. It's so raw, and they haven't been able to process it. So talking about it just brings all those emotions and and all the hidden fears that they've had over the last 50 years.
Yeah, talking about it can really open up a lot for people,
Yeah.
especially if they don't have the support to continue to process it and understand it.
Yeah. And when you talk about support too, they always go back and question, can I trust this person?
Yes.
How much can I tell them? Are they going to go behind my back and tell somebody else? I myself, I'm Hmong, and so I kind of have that fear too that's been passed down to my parents. When I see another Hmong person, how much can I tell them before they try to burn me and ruin my reputation? And I think that plays a huge role in it as well.
What would you wish for your relationship with, maybe we'll go through each family member, like your mom? What would be your wish
My wish for my mom
for your
would be,
relationship with her?
yeah, would be for it to get better, honestly, and for her just to be a little more open-minded. Um, and hear me when I talk to her. Like, don't just listen, hear me, be present. Like I teach my kids, be present when I'm talking to you because when I'm talking to you, it's pretty important. And so I still hope that our relationship can get better and that we can have conversations without cutting each other off or without having me secretly wanting to punch her out.
Well, say more about that because that's a lot of feeling right there.
It is a lot of feeling. And I want to say it's just because of the resentment of growing up and not having her there, or um, how I had told her in middle school I wanted to be a marine biologist, and she said, "Well, where's the money in that?" Those were the kind of things that she would say to
Yeah.
me. And so a lot of it is the resentment, and I know I have to let go of it because I obviously can't change the past, but um, I'm working on it. I'm working on it because I want her to know that I do love her as a mother and that we can have a relationship no matter how old we are, but I need her to meet me halfway.
And what about your dad? What would be your wish for your relationship with your dad?
With my dad, similar to my mom, but because we've had those like heart to heart conversations, like deep conversations, I don't feel like we're too far off from where I want us to be. I can hear, he's able to joke with me even at my age, which is really amazing because I didn't know if he could. He's willing to kind of still teach me. And he's also, just the other day, he was willing to hear what my suggestions were and how to approach my children because there are certain ways like I can see him, well, the way he talks to my own daughter too is like
Yeah.
how he used to talk to me. And I'm like, hey, grandpa, you can't do that, grandpa. You're not the parent, I'm the parent. And so he's open to that. And I see him being open to that, which is really good. As long as he's willing to be open to those types of conversation and have my children involved or have whoever else involved and hear them out too, I would say we'll be at a good spot together.
And then how about your brothers?
To see me at my age, to understand that when when I left for college, I know that they were still young, and so I feel like they missed out on a lot of what I went through in life, but really just see me for what I've done, how far I've come. Everyone makes mistakes in life, and just to not hold it against them because I've come a very long way. I'm honestly very proud of myself because of how far I've come and the tenacity to continue fighting for what I believe in. And so I just want them to kind of see me for who I am, acknowledge that, I've grown up and kind of just really just kind of appreciate me. It's taken a lot of work, but I want to say, setting boundaries has helped a lot.
Talk a little bit about boundaries. What boundaries have you had to set?
Yeah, despite living about 2 hours away from my parents, they tend to like to call me a lot to help them with things. The printer's broken. Do you know what's going on? Can you help me print this? Um, I have a party coming up. Can you help me with party flyers? So
Yeah.
like the littlest things they would literally call me for. And so I've been able to kind of push back and be like, no, I'm busy right now. Or actually not even answer the phone when they call at first. Because I used to do that, just pick up right away and be like, what is it that you need? But now it's really like, grandma's calling. And my kids know the ringtone too. I'm like, oh, what does grandma want now? Which I think it's bad, but it's good because they realize grandma only calls mom when she needs something. So I've been able to put the phone down, not call her back, give it some time because in the heat of the moment, she could be very emotional about something or very stressed about something. And really, I live by the airport, and so it's like, hey, grandma and grandpa are coming home Thursday night at 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
Can you pick them up? Nope, sorry. Is there anybody else that can do it? I wasn't able to do that before, but now I'm learning to like, nope, no, no.
And how are they taking it? How are they taking the boundaries being set?
Not very well. They're Because my mom will say, but we're family. And it's like, yes, mom, I know we're family. And that's why I'm asking, is there any other family that can do it? Is there anybody else that can pick up grandma and grandpa in the middle of a winter storm besides me? And it's not just because I'm convenient, but is there anybody else that's available? Because I still have 4 kids at home. She hasn't been very receptive to it, but I'm gonna keep on it. I'm gonna keep on it because one day she'll finally be like, fine, I get it. Hopefully.
So you mentioned a couple things on here that you haven't talked to your parents about. Why here? Why be so open about it here?
If there's anything that I learned during my graduate program, it really is about vulnerability, you know? The vulnerability helps you grow as a person. And also there's I feel like there would be a better connection with the audience, because
Yeah.
somebody out there is going to understand me and somebody out there is going to be like,
Yes.
I went through what she went through. Whereas with my parents, they're going to have that role as a parent and they're going to have that mentality as a parent to either just disregard the whole conversation, question or whatever it is, and just not give me what I need is that validation that, you know what, I hear you. Where whoever's listening on the other end will be like, I hear her.
And how would it be if your parents listened to this?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I can see them being angry at first, maybe not so open to the fact that I was open in sharing these experiences or anything like that. But at the same time, um, I know that this is helping me heal as a person, and it's really important for me to eventually get on that path of healing.
Where do you see your future going on your own journey?
I I see myself in an open meadow right now, and the road isn't just one narrow road, but it's a huge path. I could honestly go anywhere I wanted to. I finally feel like I have control of what I can do for myself. I can make the choices. If I want to do something, I'm going to go out and do it. No one is going to really stop me unless they're like, hey, it's kind of dangerous. Then I might consider it, reconsider. But it really is an open path. And I'm so open to getting out in the community, not even just the Hmong community, but just the community in general, to get them to start talking about their feelings because it really does matter. It really does matter, and it's very important. And really just kind of it's an open road, Dr. Michelle. It really is.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I'm not scared. I would have been scared at one point, but I'm super excited because I've gotten myself through so many things in life through my master's degree. I I'm excited to see where this open road goes because I have the final say of where it ends.
Well, Vivien, this has been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing your very, very rich story about your family, your community, your life, and all of the things that you have shared is special treat for people to be able to learn from your experience.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. It really has been a pleasure to be here and just kind of talk about myself because we don't get to do that very often. So I'm hoping that this will open doorways to other people as well.
I want to give a special thanks to Vivien and to Sue Abderholden from NAMI, Minnesota, who suggested that I talk to Vivien. I thought it was pretty courageous for Vivien to talk about some of her sexual abuse. That's a really hard and challenging issue to discuss, especially to people that she doesn't know and who are listening. And the thing that I want to mention is a plea to parents out there to take sexual abuse seriously. If your children make any kinds of references to being uncomfortable with somebody or having concerns with somebody, to listen to them. And sexual abuse is always a really tricky thing because children might not always have the words to explain or describe what's happening to them or what has happened to them. And so it's really easy for us adults to minimize or, oh, I didn't really hear that, or get uncomfortable. And children can only use the words that they know or that they've been taught. And you won't really know for sure if your child is alluding to being abused. You're not really going to know for sure if that's occurring. So you need to play it safe, ask your child a lot of questions, try to get them into counseling as soon as you can. Most counselors will completely understand you calling up and saying, hey, this is what my child's talking about. I'm concerned. I would like a professional to talk to them. They will know the questions to ask and how to pursue that. But what I would ask is parents not to just push it away. Kids have a lot of different ways of talking about their discomfort. If your child accuses somebody of something, or if your child talks about not wanting to be around someone or not wanting to go someplace that person's at, or if they talk about just not liking the person, but they're kind of specific or just kind of alluding to a lot of discomfort, listen to those signs and try to seek help. We will have resources on our podcast page at nexusfamilyhealing.org/podcast. The other thing that I was really struck with that Vivien was talking about is that she has not felt safe enough yet or able to fully talk to her parents about her own mental health struggles, as well as some of her trauma and abuse. And that's okay. We won't always have parents or adults in our life that can handle hearing the things that we're going through. But if you do find a time where you're ready to talk to your parents or other adults about your experiences, one thing to do to help that conversation is to just talk about your own experiences. Use I statements, talk about how you're thinking and feeling, talk about what happened to you. Most times, if we can avoid making our parents feel guilty for the things that happened or responsible for the things that happened, they can usually lower their defenses to discuss such things. But just remember to only talk to your parents and other adults when you're ready, when you're able, and this is a great thing to talk to a therapist about, as or if you want to prepare to talk to other people about your experiences. Another thing that really comes up, I think, in Vivien's interview is just the intergenerational trauma that has come out. And it's very common for cultures, different cultures, races, ethnicities, countries, families, people with different religious backgrounds. There is a continuum of comfort level of discussing feelings and mental health. And of course, they're not exactly the same. You know, talking about feelings doesn't mean that we have a mental health issue. But both of those things, there's a continuum in every culture of the comfort level of being able to talk about those things. And I think what was really powerful about Vivien's interview was how she has had to manage in her own Hmong community the discomfort as a culture in talking about mental health. And every single one of our cultures has certain thresholds of tolerating these conversations. And my plea to all of us would be to continue making mental health a reality to people, to talk openly about it, because the more people who are talking about it, regardless of our culture, we can work on moving the comfort level up the continuum of people being willing to talk about the realities that people have. And it's very common among cultures, especially cultures who have immigrated, that they have to not only manage just being a person and living life and mental health challenges, they have to deal with how that fits within their own culture, and they have to deal with the trauma of essentially assimilating to other countries and other cultures. And that can bring on a whole different level of trauma that can also feed into people's mental health issues. In This Family is produced by John Moe, and the music is provided by Jeremy Messersmith. You can learn more about Nexus by visiting nexusfamilyhealing.org. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I sure hope you can recommend In This Family to your family and friends, post about us on social, and leave a rating or review. I'm Dr. Michelle K. Murray. See you again next time.